My name is Victoria, and I'm 29 years old. That day, my life was a suffocating performance for my sister's sake. At my sister's engagement party, my entire family ridiculed my fake fiancé, saying I was too much of a disappointment to find a real man. They publicly mocked my career and demanded to see a ring that didn't exist. My face was burning, my stomach twisting with every cruel, cutting word. I was the disappointment of the family. While Olivia excelled at everything from her law degree to her engagement to Bradley, a successful investment banker, I chose a different path. I worked as a marine biologist, spending months at sea studying coral reef ecosystems. It wasn't glamorous by my family's standards, and it certainly didn't pay well, but it was mine. Standing in my parents' perfectly manicured backyard in Charleston, South Carolina, surrounded by Olivia's equally perfect friends and their judgmental stares, I wished I was anywhere else. So, where is this mystery fiancé of yours? Or did you make him up? My sister Olivia's voice rang out across the garden, loud enough for everyone to hear. He's running late from work, I said quietly, gripping my glass of champagne tighter. He'll be here. My mother laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that was pure poison. Work on a Saturday afternoon? Really, sweetheart, you don't have to keep up this charade. We all know there's no fiancé. My own mother called me a liar in front of everyone. Victoria has always been creative, my father added, joining the humiliation. Remember when she said she was going to save the oceans? Now she's inventing boyfriends. The guests laughed. Most of them seemed entertained by my suffering. It had all started in a moment of weakness 2 weeks ago when I'd mentioned I was seeing someone. That single, honest comment had spiraled into my family, assuming I was engaged, and when I tried to correct them, they simply talked over me. Tell us about him, Olivia pressed, her green eyes glinting with malicious glee. What does this phantom fiancé do? Where did you meet him? The truth was complicated, and I knew they wouldn't understand. His name was Alexander, and he funded marine conservation projects. We'd spent 2 weeks together on an expedition in the Caribbean, talking late into the night about ocean preservation. He'd visited me twice in Charleston since, and we exchanged messages and video calls. I felt more understood by this stranger than I ever had in my life. He's in environmental work, I said carefully. He invests in conservation projects. My mother snorted. So he's unemployed. That tracks. A trust fund baby-playing activist. Bradley interjected with a smirk. How progressive of you, Victoria. Tears were burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Every holiday, every celebration turned into an opportunity for them to remind me that I wasn't good enough, that I'd chosen wrong, that I was a failure. He's actually quite successful, I said, hating the defensive note in my voice. He's just private about his work. Because he doesn't exist, Olivia sang out, and several guests chuckled. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Alexander's name. Running late, traffic, be there in 20 minutes. Love you. My heart squeezed at those last 2 words, words he'd only started saying a week ago. Let me guess, my father said, noticing my phone. He's canceling. He's 20 minutes away, I replied, my voice barely audible. Sure he is, my mother said, exchanging glances with my Aunt Patricia. Victoria, sweetheart, it's okay to be alone. You don't have to invent a relationship to make yourself feel better about your choices. Then where's the ring? Olivia demanded, grabbing my left hand and displaying it to the crowd. You said you were engaged, but there's no ring because there's no fiancé. I pulled my hand back, my cheeks burning. I never said I was engaged. You all just assumed. Because you let us, my mother interrupted. You let us believe you'd finally found someone because you knew we'd pity you otherwise. And here we are, pitying you anyway because you got caught in your own lie. The words hit like physical blows. I looked around the garden, seeing the mixture of amusement and secondhand embarrassment on the faces of strangers and distant relatives. I think I should go, I whispered. No, stay, Olivia said quickly, her voice sickly sweet. I want to meet this mysterious fiancé, she added, unless you're admitting there isn't one. I checked my phone again. 15 minutes. I decided right then and there, this was the last time. After today, I was done. I'll wait, I said quietly. My mother sighed heavily. Victoria, this is just sad. You're making this worse for yourself. But I held my ground, checking the time, willing Alexander to arrive and prove them all wrong. I will continue the script, maintaining the requested narrator's voice only, the tone of anger and pain, and dramatically, expanding the narrative by depicting the final, vicious moments before the spectacle begins. The party continued around me, a sickening hum of false cheer and self-congratulation, but I felt like I was standing in a bubble of isolation. Olivia had moved on to showing off photos of her wedding venue on her phone to a cluster of admirers, occasionally glancing my way to make sure I was still there, still suffering. My mother, the master manipulator, cornered me by the drink table, continuing her assessment of my life choices. "You know, when you were younger, I had such hopes for you," she sighed, refilling her wine glass. "You were so bright, so full of potential. And then you went off to study fish and threw it all away." "I have a doctorate in marine biology, Mom. I didn't throw anything away." "A doctorate that pays how much? 40,000 a year? 50 if you're lucky?" She shook her head in disdain. Meanwhile, Olivia is making 6 figures at her firm, marrying a man who makes even more. She's building a life. You're just floating. The irony of her using the word floating about someone who spent half their life underwater wasn't lost on me, but I didn't bother pointing it out. My mother had never understood my work. To her, success was measured in salary and social status, not in published research or conservation efforts. "I like my work," I said simply. "That's what people say when they failed at everything else." I excused myself and wandered to the edge of the garden, where the perfectly trimmed hedges gave way to a view of the marsh beyond. This house, this life, had never felt like home to me. Olivia had always been the golden child, the one who made our parents proud. I'd been the strange one, the girl who brought home injured birds and spent hours reading about ocean ecosystems instead of socializing at country club events. My phone buzzed. 10 minutes out. "Can't wait to see you." I typed back quickly, the words a raw confession. "Warning, my family is awful. I'm sorry in advance." His response was instant. "I can handle awful. See you soon." I tucked my phone away, my heart thumping a frantic, hopeful rhythm. My Aunt Patricia approached, my mother's younger sister, equally obsessed with appearances and social standing. She had never married, which, in her mind, gave her the authority to be particularly vicious about other people's relationships. "Your mother told me about your imaginary boyfriend," she said without preamble. "I have to say, Victoria, it's a bit pathetic even for you." "He's not imaginary, Aunt Patricia." "Then where is he?" "It's been, what, an hour since the party started? Any real boyfriend would have made it by now." I didn't bother arguing. They had made up their minds about me years ago, and nothing I said would change their perspective. I was the failure, the disappointment, the one who'd never measure up to Olivia's achievements. My father joined us, bringing Bradley, Olivia's fiancé, with him. "Everything all right over here?" "Just chatting with Victoria about her mysterious fiancé," Patricia said with a knowing smile. Bradley laughed, the condescension in his voice making my jaw clench. "Come on, Victoria. You can admit it. There's no guy. It's okay to be single. Some people just aren't meant for relationships." He was exactly the kind of man my family admired, wealthy, confident, and completely lacking in genuine warmth or empathy. "He's on his way," I repeated for what felt like the 100th time. "Look, sweetheart, we're not trying to be cruel," my father said, the lie tasting like ash. "We're just concerned. You've always been a bit different, and that's fine, but you don't need to make up stories to fit in. Different. That word had followed me my entire life. Different because I chose science over business. Different because I actually cared about making a difference instead of making money. Different because I didn't see the value in their shallow, materialistic world. Olivia appeared at my father's elbow, her expression one of exaggerated sympathy. "Victoria, I know you wanted today to be about you too, but this is getting embarrassing. Can you please just admit there's no fiancé so we can all move on?" "Why do you care so much?" I shot back, the raw anger surprising myself. "Because you're humiliating yourself," Olivia whispered, her voice harsh. "And by extension, you're humiliating all of us. Do you know how many people have asked me why my sister is lying about having a boyfriend? It reflects poorly on our entire family." I stared at her, this beautiful, accomplished woman who had everything she could want, and realized she was jealous not of what I had, but of the possibility that I might have found something she hadn't, genuine connection with someone who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them. "He'll be here in 5 minutes," I said quietly, the finality ringing in my voice. "And then you can all apologize." My mother laughed, a final nasty sound. "Oh, Victoria, you really committed to this, didn't you? What happens when 5 minutes pass and no one shows up? What's your excuse then? I checked my phone. Alexander had sent a new message. Arriving now. Where should I land? Land? My stomach did a small flip. He couldn't mean what I thought he meant. Could he? Before I could respond, a sound cut through the ambient party noise. The distinctive thump-thump-thump of helicopter blades. Everyone in the garden fell silent, looking up as the sound grew louder. My mother's face went pale. Is that a helicopter? It's probably just passing over, my father said. But he sounded utterly uncertain. The helicopter appeared over the tree line, sleek and black, descending toward the open field adjacent to the property. The downdraft from the blades sent napkins and decorations flying, causing guests to scramble for cover. Olivia shrieked as her carefully arranged centerpieces toppled. I stood frozen, my heart pounding as the helicopter touched down gracefully about 50 yards away. The blades began to slow, and through the tinted windows, I could see Alexander's familiar silhouette. He was really here. He'd come in a helicopter. Victoria, my mother said weakly, her face a perfect mixture of shock and dawning horror. That's my fiancé, I said, and for the first time all day, I smiled. I will continue the script, maintaining the requested narrator's voice only, the tone of anger and pain, and dramatically expanding the narrative by depicting the spectacular proposal, the staggering gifts, and the family's utter defeat. The thump-thump-thump of the helicopter blades was no longer a distant sound. It was an undeniable reality, a disruptive, glorious symphony of defiance. The downdraft sent napkins and decorations flying, a chaotic windstorm tearing through my sister's perfectly manicured garden party. Olivia shrieked as her carefully arranged centerpieces toppled a small, perfect sound, the taze of her shallow world shattering. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, watching as the helicopter touched down gracefully about 50 yards away. The blades slowed, and through the tinted windows, I could see Alexander's familiar silhouette. He was really here. He had actually come in a helicopter. Victoria, my mother said weakly, her voice thin with shock. Is that his fiancé? That's my fiancé, I said, and for the first time all day, I smiled a genuine, triumphant, terrifying smile. The helicopter door opened, and Alexander emerged, looking impossibly handsome in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt. He carried a large gift box under one arm and waved to the crowd with his free hand, his confidence utterly unbothered by the stunned silence that had fallen over the party. He walked toward me with the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was and who I was to him. Victoria, he called out when he spotted me, his whole face lighting up. He closed the distance between us in quick strides, set down the gift box, and pulled me into his arms, kissing me with a tenderness that made my knees weak. God, I missed you. Sorry I'm late, darling. Work ran longer than expected. When he pulled back, I was vaguely aware of my family gaping at us, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. You came in a helicopter. Traffic was impossible, and I promised I'd be here, he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Nothing was going to make me miss this. But where did you? He laughed, that rich, warm sound I'd fallen in love with. I borrowed it from a friend who runs a charter service. Cost me a favor, but you're worth it. He finally looked around at the assembled guests, his arm still around my waist, anchoring me in this new reality. I'm Alexander. You must be Victoria's family. It's wonderful to finally meet you all. My mother had turned an interesting shade of red, somewhere between embarrassment and fury. My father looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Olivia's mouth hung open, her perfect composure completely shattered. Bradley had gone pale. His smug, condescending smirk evaporated into dust. You're real, my mother managed to say. Very real, Alexander confirmed with a grin. And very much in love with your daughter. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. I know it's Olivia's celebration, and I didn't mean to steal focus. He turned to my sister, extending his free hand. Congratulations on your engagement. Victoria's told me wonderful things about you. That was a lie, but a gracious one. Olivia mechanically shook his hand, her eyes fixed on his watch, a vintage Patek Philippe that probably cost more than her car. The helicopter, my father started. Just a convenient way to avoid traffic, Alexander said easily. I was at a project site in Colombia, and when Victoria told me about today, I knew I couldn't miss it. We've been apart too long already. The woman who had climbed Out of the helicopter, Alexander's professional-looking assistant had reached us, carrying an armload of elegantly wrapped gifts. "These are for you," Alexander said to Olivia and Bradley. "Just a few things Victoria and I picked out. We wanted to contribute to the celebration." Olivia accepted the packages with trembling hands. There were 5 boxes, each wrapped in expensive-looking paper. She set them on the nearest table and carefully opened the first one. A crystal vase, clearly antique, clearly expensive. The second box held a set of monogrammed silver candlesticks. The third contained a gift certificate to one of Charleston's most exclusive restaurants along with a bottle of wine that made Bradley's eyes widen. "This is a 1982 Chateau Margaux," Bradley breathed, reverently examining the bottle. "This costs." "It's nothing," Alexander said dismissively. "Just wanted to celebrate the happy couple properly." My Aunt Patricia had crept closer, openly staring at Alexander like he was some exotic creature. "What exactly do you do, young man?" "I work in environmental conservation," Alexander replied. "Specifically, marine ecosystem preservation. That's how Victoria and I met. Actually, she was consulting on one of my projects in the Caribbean." "Consulting?" my mother echoed, looking at me with new, confused eyes. "Victoria's research is crucial to several initiatives I'm funding," Alexander explained. "Her work on coral reef regeneration has been groundbreaking. I'm trying to convince her to come work for me full-time, but she's committed to her current research position." He looked at me with such genuine pride that my chest tightened. "She's brilliant, your daughter, though I suspect you already know that." The silence that followed was deafening, crushing. My family, who'd spent the last hour mocking me, stood there realizing they'd badly, cruelly miscalculated. Alexander wasn't some made-up boyfriend or trust fund activist. He was real. He was incredibly successful, and he clearly adored me. "I brought something for you, too," Alexander said, turning back to me. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. My heart stopped. "I know we said we'd wait, but I couldn't hold on to this any longer." He opened the box, revealing a ring that took my breath away. It was a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds set in platinum. "Victoria, I know your family thinks I'm some phantom you invented," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but speaking only to me. "But I'm real, and so is what I feel for you. Will you marry me? Really marry me? Not just let your family assume things?" Tears were streaming down my face now, but they were good tears. Happy, furious, liberated tears. "You already know my answer." Yes, of course. Yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. Alexander kissed me again, deeper this time, and I heard the collective gasp from the crowd. When we broke apart, he kept his arm around me, anchoring me to this moment, to this reality. "So," he said cheerfully to my family, "I understand there were some doubts about my existence. Completely fair. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." My mother opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. We didn't mean, it's fine." I cut her off quietly, finding my voice. "You made your opinions very clear. All of you did." I looked around at the assembled guests, at my family's mortified faces, at Olivia's barely contained fury at having her spotlight stolen. "Thank you for that. It made what happens next much easier." "What happens next?" my father asked wearily. "We leave," I said simply. "Alexander and I have plans this evening, and I don't think we're needed here anymore." Alexander's assistant approached with a large envelope. "These are for the bride and groom," she said, handing it to Olivia. "From Victoria and Alexander for the wedding." Olivia opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out a check. Her eyes widened. This is $50,000 for the wedding expenses," Alexander said casually. "Consider it our gift. Use it however you'd like." The amount was staggering. It was more than generous. It was a statement. Bradley looked like he might faint. "We really should go," I said, taking Alexander's hand. "We have dinner reservations, and the helicopter needs to be back by sunset." As we walked toward the helicopter, my family stood frozen in the garden, surrounded by their stunned guests. I could hear the whispered conversation starting up, the speculation about who Alexander really was, how much money he had. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought. Alexander helped me into the helicopter, and as we lifted off, I looked down at the party below. Olivia was still clutching the check. My parents were arguing with each other. "You okay?" Alexander asked, buckling himself in beside me. "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it. The sapphire ring on my finger winked like a promise of better things to come. The helicopter ride back to the city felt surreal. Below us, Charleston's historic district gave way to the harbor, then the open water I knew so well from my research vessels. Alexander held my hand the entire time, occasionally lifting it to his lips to kiss my knuckles, careful not to disturb the sapphire ring that still felt impossibly foreign and wonderful on my finger. "I can't believe you did that," I said for probably the 10th time since we'd taken off. Alexander grinned. "Which part? The helicopter? The gifts? The very public proposal?" "All of it. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he interrupted gently. "Victoria, when you texted me earlier about what they were saying, about how they were treating you, I wanted to drive straight there and give them a piece of my mind, but then I thought about what would make a bigger impact." He brushed his thumb across my ring. "I've been planning to propose for weeks, but then today happened, and I realized the most romantic thing I could do was show up for you when you needed me." My throat tightened with emotion. "You showed up in a helicopter with gifts and proposed in front of everyone." "I may have gotten a bit carried away," he admitted with a sheepish smile, "but your family needed to understand that you're not some afterthought or disappointment. You're extraordinary, Victoria. What you do matters." The research you published last year on coral bleaching prevention has been cited in 17 different conservation proposals. Do you know how many reefs could be saved because of your work? This was what my family had never understood. To them, success meant money and prestige. To Alexander, to me, success meant making a difference, contributing something meaningful to the world. "What was the project site you were at today?" I asked, partly to change the subject, partly because I was genuinely curious. "Colombia," he said. "We're working with local communities to establish protected marine zones. I met with government officials this morning, then flew straight here. Technically, I should have stayed another day for follow-up meetings, but I told them I had something more important to attend, for the woman I love, and they understood. Well, mostly. Besides, I needed to meet the family that somehow produced someone as amazing as you, despite their best efforts to make you feel otherwise." He added, "We touched down at a luxury hotel helipad in downtown Charleston. I booked us a suite," he said. "I thought you might not want to go back to your apartment right away. Too many feelings to process, maybe." He was right. The suite was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. As soon as the door closed, the tears came, not the happy tears from the proposal, but the hurt, angry tears I'd been holding back all afternoon. "I hate that they made you feel this way," Alexander said when I finally calmed down. "I hate that they couldn't see what I see, what everyone who knows you sees. I thought I didn't care anymore," I said, my voice muffled against his chest. "But today, when they were all laughing at me, saying I'd made you up, I know," he soothed. "And I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner. You came in a helicopter, Alexander. I think you made up for being late. Though I have to admit, the look on your sister's face when I handed her that check was worth every penny." He chuckled. "I wanted to make a point. They thought you'd settled for some nobody. I wanted them to understand that you could have anyone you wanted, and you chose someone who sees your worth. Did you really spend $50,000 just to prove a point?" "I spent $50,000 on my future sister-in-law's wedding because my fiancé deserves to have her family see her as she truly is. Generous, kind, and far too good for any of them. Besides, I can afford it. The Marine Conservation Fund has been doing extremely well. If it makes them think twice before dismissing you again, it's money well spent." My phone buzzed again, insistent, and Alexander sighed. "You should probably check that just in case it's work or something important." I pulled my phone from my clutch and immediately wished I hadn't. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages, 3 voicemails, all from my mother. The texts ranged from accusatory to apologetic to demanding, but it was the voicemail from my mother that made my blood run cold. I put it on speaker so Alexander could hear. "Victoria, you need to call me back immediately. I don't know what game you're playing, but that man is not who he says he is. I had Patricia look him up, and there's hardly any information about him online. No social media, no company websites, nothing. Either he's hiding something or he's scamming you. Call me back right now so we can figure out how to handle this before you embarrass the family further." I stared at my phone. For a moment doubt crept in. How well did I really know him? We'd spent maybe 6 weeks together in person over the past 3 months. Say something, I whispered. Alexander ran a hand through his hair. Your mother's not entirely wrong. I don't have social media. I don't advertise my work publicly. And if someone searches for me online, they won't find much beyond a few mentions in obscure environmental journals and some conference attendance records. Why? I asked, my stomach dropping. Because about 5 years ago, I learned the hard way that being too public about conservation work attracts the wrong kind of attention. I was working on a project in the Philippines, trying to shut down an illegal fishing operation. I was young, idealistic, and very vocal about it. Someone decided to make an example of me. They burned down the research station I was funding. 3 local staff members were injured. 1 lost an eye. After that, I made a choice. I could keep fighting, publicly, and put more people at risk, or I could do the work quietly behind the scenes, where I could actually make a difference without painting targets on the backs of the people helping me. I keep a low profile to protect myself and the people I work with. I moved to stand beside him, taking his hand. I'm so sorry. It's ancient history now, but it's why I keep a low profile. The people who need to know who I am, government officials, conservation organizations, researchers like you, they know. Everyone else doesn't need to know. It makes me more effective. He turned to face me. Victoria, I need you to understand something. I'm not perfect. I have flaws, baggage, a past that's complicated. But I'm not scamming you. Everything I told you about my work, about who I am, it's all true. I can prove it if you need me to. I don't need you to prove anything. I believe you. But I want you to be certain, Alexander insisted, looking down at the sapphire ring on my finger. Not because your family approves or disapproves, but because you're sure about us, about me. Before I could respond, my phone rang my mother again. I declined the call, but immediately Olivia called, then my father. They were coordinating their assault, taking turns trying to breach my emotional fortress. They're not going to stop, I said. Then maybe we should talk to them, Alexander suggested, checking his watch. Clear the air, answer their questions. We can push the dinner reservation back. This is important. You want to face my family again after what they put you through today? They didn't put me through anything. You're the one they hurt. And if talking to them will give you peace of mind, help you move forward, then yes, I want to face them. Against my better judgment, I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with panic. Finally, we're at your apartment. We need to talk to you and this Alexander person right now. You're at my apartment? Mom, I didn't invite you. This is too important to wait. Your father, Olivia, Bradley, and I are all here. We need answers. I looked at Alexander, who nodded, his expression resolute. Fine, but we're not coming there. If you want to talk, meet us at the waterfront cafe in 30 minutes. It's public neutral territory. Victoria, this is a family matter. We shouldn't discuss it in public. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. My mother was quiet for a moment. Fine. 30 minutes. I hung up and immediately felt exhausted. I can't believe they went to my apartment. This is your family showing their true colors, Alexander said, sitting beside me on the bed. But honestly, it might be better to do this now. Get everything out in the open rather than let it fester. What if they try to convince me you're dangerous? What if they make me doubt you? He took both my hands in his. Then you doubt me. That's your right. But I hope after everything we've been through together, after all our conversations about conservation and research and the future we could build together, that you know who I am. I know who you are. Alexander, you're the man who spent 3 hours helping me sort coral samples even though you had meetings to attend. You're the man who cried when we saw those baby sea turtles hatch. You're the man who listens when I talk about my work. Really listens and asks questions because you genuinely care. Good. Then let's go talk to your family and help them understand what you already know. We changed for dinner and took the elevator down to the lobby. The waterfront cafe was a casual spot overlooking the marina. We got there first and claimed a large table on the outdoor patio, positioning ourselves with a view of the entrance. You okay? Alexander asked, ordering us both waters. No, but I will be. I twisted the ring on my finger, a nervous habit I'd apparently already developed. My family arrived exactly on time, my mother leading the charge, looking like she'd been crying, her makeup slightly smudged. Olivia appeared angry, her jaw set in that familiar way. Bradley looked uncomfortable. My father's expression was carefully neutral. They sat down without greeting us, and an awkward, toxic silence fell over the table. So, my mother began, her voice tight. Are you going to explain yourself? Or are we supposed to just accept that you've suddenly gotten engaged to someone we know nothing about? I don't need to explain anything to you, I said quietly, firmly. But I'll do it anyway. Alexander and I met 3 months ago during a research expedition he was funding. We've been dating since then. Today he proposed. I said yes. That's the entire story. 3 months. Olivia scoffed. You've known him for 3 months and you're engaged. Victoria, that's insane. You got engaged to Bradley after 6 months, I pointed out. That's different. We ran. In the same social circles. Our families knew each other. You met this man on some random island. The Caribbean, Alexander interjected politely. And it wasn't random. I own property there. Victoria was conducting research on a reef system I've been working to preserve. My father leaned forward. What exactly do you do, Alexander? What's your company? Where's your office? I run a private conservation fund. I don't have a company in the traditional sense, and I don't have an office. I work from wherever the projects are. And this fund? It's profitable? Profitable enough. I also have other investments, real estate, some tech startups, a few renewable energy ventures. The fund is my passion project. The investments are how I fund it. But there's nothing online about you, my mother pressed. Patricia searched everywhere. What kind of legitimate businessman has no online presence? Alexander's expression remained pleasantly detached, the kind who values privacy and security. I've had threats, serious ones, from people who don't appreciate my conservation work interfering with their profits. I keep a low profile to protect myself and the people I work with. That's very convenient, Bradley said, speaking for the first time. No online presence means we can't verify anything you're saying. For all we know, that helicopter was rented with money you don't have. Those gifts were bought on credit. And you're running some elaborate long con on Victoria. The accusation hung in the air. I felt my face flush with anger, but Alexander put a calming hand on my knee under the table. You're right, he said, surprising everyone. You can't verify what I'm saying through a simple internet search, but I can provide verification if you need it. I have bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. I can give you the contact information for the director of the Caribbean Conservation Alliance, the head of marine biology at the University of Miami, who collaborates with my fund, and the governor of the province in Colombia, where I was working this morning. They'll all vouch for who I am and what I do. He pulled out his phone. I'm sending you all the contact information right now, along with authorization for them to discuss my work and finances with you. Call them, email them, do whatever due diligence you need. I have nothing to hide. My phone buzzed as the email arrived, a list of names, phone numbers, and email addresses for what looked like very impressive people in both conservation and business circles. He'd also attached scanned copies of several documents, including what appeared to be property deeds and bank statements with balances that made my eyes widen. This could all be fake, Olivia said, but her voice had lost its certainty. Call them, Alexander challenged. Right now. I'll wait. My father glanced at his phone, scrolling through the attachments. I watched his expression shift from skepticism to surprise to something that looked like grudging respect. He tapped on one of the phone numbers and stepped away from the table to make a call. The silence that followed was heavy with consequence. While my father was away from the table making his verification call, Alexander continued, addressing my mother and Olivia. The air was thick with tension, but Alexander's voice remained even, controlled, and utterly devastating in its clarity. I want to address something else, he said. You seem to think I'm taking advantage of Victoria, but I'd argue it's the other way around. Your daughter is one of the most brilliant marine biologists of her generation. Her work is cited in conservation proposals around the world. She's dedicated her life to protecting ocean ecosystems. He paused, letting his words land like stones. While most people her age are focused on building wealth and status, and you've spent today treating her like she's a failure because she chose purpose over profit. We never said she was a failure, my mother protested weakly, attempting to salvage her reputation. Really? Alexander countered, his voice hard. Because I heard you tell her she threw away her potential. I heard you mock her career choice. I heard you suggest she'd invented me because no real man would want her. Should I go on? The table fell silent. Olivia was staring at her hands, and my mother's face had gone pale. Bradley looked like he wanted to physically disappear. I didn't know you heard all that, my mother said quietly. I heard enough, Alexander replied, his voice chilling. And I'm going to say this once clearly, so there's no misunderstanding. Victoria didn't settle for me. I'm the one who got lucky. She could have any man she wanted, and she chose me. Not because of money or status or helicopter rides, but because we share the same values, the same passion for making the world better. My father returned to the table, his expression troubled, defeated. He set his phone down. I just spoke with Dr. Harrison at the University of Miami. He confirmed everything Alexander said. He also said that without Alexander's funding, their marine conservation program would have been shut down 3 years ago. He looked utterly shattered. He called him one of the most important advocates for ocean preservation in the private sector. That's one person, Olivia said stubbornly, still clinging to the thread of doubt. I can call the others, my father interrupted, cutting her off. But I don't think I need to. The bank statements alone. He trailed off, looking at me with new, painful eyes. Victoria, why didn't you tell us about any of this? Because you never asked, I said simply, the truth a sharp, necessary weapon. You never asked about my work, about what I was doing in the Caribbean, about the people I was meeting. You assumed my life was empty and sad because it looked different from what you wanted for me. We just wanted you to be happy, my mother said, tears finally springing to her eyes. I am happy. I have security and stability. I just found them in a different way than you expected. Olivia's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it. Her face went white. The check. I just got a notification that the check cleared. $50,000 deposited into the wedding account. She looked up at Alexander. You really just gave us $50,000. I really did, Alexander confirmed. Consider it an investment in family peace, though I'm starting to think that might have been optimistic on my part. Bradley, who had been reading through something on his phone, set it down with a heavy sigh. I looked up the Columbia project Alexander mentioned. It's real. There are news articles about it, government press releases, everything. He really was meeting with officials this morning. He looked at me apologetically. Victoria, I'm sorry, we all thought. You thought I was so desperate and pathetic that I'd invent a boyfriend to make myself feel better. I know what. You thought I finished for him. You made it very clear. We were wrong, my father said firmly, standing up. He turned to Alexander, extending his hand. I apologize for our suspicion and our behavior today. You came to celebrate with us, and we treated you and Victoria abominably. Alexander shook his hand, though I could feel the tension in his body. I appreciate the apology, but it's not me you need to apologize to. Victoria is the one who's been carrying the weight of your disappointment and criticism for years. All eyes turned to me, and I felt the familiar urge to smooth things over, to forgive and forget, because that was easier than confrontation. But Alexander's hand found mine under the table again, anchoring me. I'm not going to tell you it's okay, I said slowly, maintaining eye contact with my father. What happened today wasn't okay. What's been happening for years isn't okay. You've made me feel like a disappointment my entire adult life because I chose a different path than Olivia. You've dismissed my work, mocked my choices, and today you publicly humiliated me. An apology is a start, but it doesn't erase the hurt. What can we do? My mother asked, her voice cracking. I don't know if you can, I admitted. But if you want to try, it starts with respecting my choices. It means acknowledging that my career has value. It means treating Alexander with courtesy. It means understanding that we may not have a close relationship for a while because I need to protect myself from more hurt. We can do that, my father said, nodding. Victoria, we love you. We always have. We just didn't show it well. I need to see that, not just hear it, I replied. And honestly, right now, I need space. Alexander and I have a dinner reservation, and I'd like to enjoy our engagement without more family drama. Olivia reached across the table. I'm sorry, Victoria. Really sorry. I should have defended you. I didn't, and that was cowardly. You're my sister. I should have been better. It was the most genuine thing I'd heard from her in years. I took her hand and squeezed it briefly. Thank you for saying that. If you want to bring him to the wedding, I'd like that, she said hesitantly. I looked at Alexander, who gave a small nod. We'll think about it. My father stood too, pulling me into a hug. I'm proud of you, he whispered. I should have said that years ago. I'm proud of the work you do, the person you've become, and the man you've chosen. The words cracked something open in my chest, and I found myself hugging him back. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe not. But at least we were trying. As Alexander and I walked away from the cafe, his arm around my waist, I felt lighter than I had in years. 2 weeks after Olivia's disastrous engagement party, I woke up in Alexander's arms in my small apartment. We'd spent the past 14 days in a blissful bubble, mostly ignoring the outside world, except for our necessary work commitments. He'd extended his stay in Charleston, working remotely while I continued my research at the Coastal Lab. Every morning, we had coffee together. Every evening, we cooked dinner and talked about everything and nothing. It was perfect. Too perfect. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Olivia. Family dinner tonight at Mom and Dad's. Please come. We need to talk about something important. I showed Alexander the message. He was already awake, looking unfairly handsome in the morning light filtering through my curtains. Do you want to go? He asked. Not particularly. But if we're going to try to rebuild this relationship, I suppose I should make an effort. Then we'll go together. I texted back a confirmation, and Olivia responded immediately with a heart emoji. That alone was suspicious. My sister didn't use heart emojis with me. We weren't that kind of siblings. The day passed quickly. Alexander joined me for lunch, bringing sandwiches from my favorite deli and patiently sitting while I explained my latest findings about nutrient levels and their impact on coral health. He asked intelligent questions, genuinely interested, and I was reminded again of why I'd fallen for him. He saw my work as important, not as a quirky hobby or a phase I'd grow out of. At 6 that evening, we pulled up to my parents' house. The same imposing facade, but somehow it felt less intimidating now. Maybe because I had Alexander beside me. Maybe because I'd finally stood up for myself. My mother answered the door, and to my surprise, she pulled me into a hug. A real one, not the stiff, obligatory embraces I was used to. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Both of you. Inside, my father was opening a bottle of wine. Olivia and Bradley were already seated, looking nervous. What's going on? I asked as Alexander pulled out my chair. We wanted to talk to you about something, my father began. After what happened at the party, your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking about how we've treated you, about our priorities, about what really matters. My mother took a shaky breath. We've been terrible parents to you, Victoria, for years, and we want to make amends. I glanced at Alexander, who squeezed my hand under the table. Okay, I said cautiously. We've set up a fund, my father continued, for marine conservation research, in your name. It's not much, $50,000 to start, but we want to contribute to the work you're doing. We want to support you the way we should have been supporting you all along. $50,000, the same amount Alexander had given Olivia for her wedding. It was a clear, direct attempt at a symbolic rebalancing of the scales. We also want to feature your work in our holiday letter this year, my mother added. For years we've been bragging about Olivia's accomplishments, but we've barely mentioned you. That changes now. We want people to know that our daughter is doing important work, making a real difference in the world. And I want to apologize again, Olivia said, her voice small. I've been thinking about what you said, about how I should have defended you. You were right. I was jealous of you, Victoria. Not of what you had, but of the fact that you had the courage to choose your own path, to do what made you happy, regardless of what anyone else thought. You were brave, and I was a coward. Tears were streaming down my face now. Alexander handed me his napkin, his own eyes suspiciously bright. I don't know what to say, I managed. You don't have to say anything, my father replied. We don't expect you to forgive us immediately. We just want you to know that we're trying. We see you now, Victoria. Really see you, and we're proud of you. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. We talked about my research, about Alexander's projects. Bradley asked intelligent questions about coral reef ecosystems, and my mother actually listened when I explained the intricacies of my work. It felt like having a real family dinner for the first time in years. As we were leaving, Olivia caught my arm. There's something else, she said quietly. I've been talking to the partners at my firm. We handle a lot of environmental law, and I mentioned your work to them. They're interested in providing pro bono legal services for conservation initiatives. I thought maybe Alexander's fund could use that kind of support. I looked at my sister, this woman I'd spent so long resenting, and saw her trying, really trying. That would be amazing, Olivia. Thank you. It's the least I can do. In the car on the way back to my apartment, Alexander was quiet. Finally, he said. That was unexpected. Unexpected. Good. Definitely good. Your family really is trying. You deserve this, Victoria. You deserve to have people who see your worth. I have you. That's enough. You have me, and now you have them too. You can have both. Maybe he was right. Maybe I could have both. The next morning, I woke to my phone, ringing. It was barely 7 a.m., and Alexander groaned beside me, pulling a pillow over his head. Who calls this early? He mumbled. I grabbed my phone, squinting at the screen. Unknown number. I almost declined, but something made me answer. Victoria, it's Dr. Harrison from the University of Miami. I sat up quickly. Doctor. Harrison was the head of the team I'd consulted with last year on the coral project. Dr. Harrison, is everything okay? More than okay. I'm calling because we've had a development. You know, the reef restoration project you consulted on last year? Of course I knew. It had been one of my favorite projects, working with Dr. Harrison's team to develop new techniques for coral propagation. The results are in, and Victoria, they're extraordinary. We're seeing a 92% survival rate in the transplanted corals. That's unprecedented. My heart hammered against my ribs. We're going to publish the findings, and we want you as lead author. Lead author. The ultimate validation. You developed the methodology. You should get the credit. This is going to change the field. Victoria, this is the kind of breakthrough that saves reefs around the world. After I hung up, I turned to Alexander, who'd given up on sleep, and was watching me with a wide smile. Good news. The best news. The reef project. It worked. It really worked. And they want me to lead the publication. He pulled me into his arms, laughing. Of course it worked. You're brilliant. I've been telling you that for months. This is huge, Alexander. This could mean grants, more research opportunities, maybe even a permanent position at the university. Dr. Harrison mentioned they're creating a new marine conservation chair. He thinks I should apply. Then you should apply. Victoria, this is everything you've worked for. This is your purpose. But a permanent position would mean staying in Miami. And Alexander's work took him all over the world. The reality of our different paths suddenly crashed over me. What's wrong? He asked, reading my expression. If I take a position in Miami and you're traveling constantly for your projects, then we figure it out. I can base myself out of Miami. I have property in the Caribbean, remember? It's a short flight, and most of my work can be done remotely anyway. The only time I need to be on site is for major meetings or project launches. You do that? Restructure your whole life? Victoria, I'd restructure my whole life 100 times over if it meant being with you. You're not asking me to give anything up. You're giving me a reason to build a home base, something I've never had. I've been nomadic for years because I had no reason to stay anywhere. Now I have a reason. You. I kissed him, pouring all my gratitude and love into it. My phone rang again. This time it was Olivia. I answered, putting her on speaker. I just got some amazing news, she declared. And is it about the paper? Because I just saw Dr. Harrison's tweet about it. Victoria, this is incredible. He's calling you a pioneering voice in marine conservation. You follow Dr. Harrison on social media? I started following a bunch of marine biology accounts after the engagement party. I wanted to understand your work better. And Victoria, what you're doing is incredible. I had no idea the scope of it. There are so many people talking about your research, so many conservation groups citing your findings. How did we not know about this? Because you never asked, I said, but without bitterness. The anger was gone, replaced by the profound satisfaction of vindication. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm asking now, tell me everything. So I did. I spent 20 minutes explaining the reef project, the methodology, the implications for coral conservation worldwide. Olivia listened, asked questions, and for the first time in our lives, I felt like she was seeing me as a person, not just the disappointing sister. I'm going to send this to everyone I know, she declared. My partners, my friends, everyone. They need to know what you're doing. Alexander pulled me back into bed. Your sister is becoming your biggest cheerleader. It's weird, but good weird. It's what you deserve. Everyone who knows you should be cheering for you. We spent the rest of the morning in bed making plans. Alexander would start looking for a permanent place in Miami. I would apply for the university position. We'd set a wedding date for next spring somewhere in the Caribbean, intimate and beautiful. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Saw the news about your paper. So proud of you. Can we take you and Alexander out to dinner to celebrate? I showed Alexander, and he smiled. Your family really is changing. They really are, I whispered, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had everything I'd ever wanted. The publication of my paper, that monumental piece of research that proved I was more than just studying fish, changed everything. Within a week, I was fielding calls from universities, conservation organizations, and even a documentary filmmaker who wanted to feature my work. The University of Miami officially offered me the position of associate professor and director of the new Marine Conservation Research Center. This wasn't just a job. It was my dream, my validation, earned entirely on merit. Alexander threw an impromptu celebration at a waterfront restaurant, inviting my family, colleagues, and several of his conservation partners. It was a beautiful, overwhelming night. My mother cried when she gave her toast. I'm so sorry it took me this long to see what an extraordinary woman my daughter is, she admitted, her voice thick with genuine emotion. But I see it now, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure she knows how proud I am. My father stood next, his voice thick with emotion. Victoria has always been brave enough to follow her heart, even when we tried to push her in a different direction. She's taught me that success isn't measured in dollars or status, but in the impact we have on the world. My daughter is changing the world, one reef at a time. Olivia's toast surprised me most. I spent my whole life being the golden child, the one who did everything right, she confessed. But watching Victoria, I realized I was doing everything safe. She took risks. She chose passion over prestige, and she found more happiness than I've ever known. Victoria, you're my hero. I hope someday I have half your courage. When it was my turn to speak, I looked around the table at the faces of people who loved me, supported me, believed in me. Alexander beside me, his hand warm in mine, my family imperfect but trying. 3 months ago, I went to my sister's engagement party, expecting to be humiliated. I began. I was prepared for my family to mock me, dismiss me, treat me like a failure. And they did. But then something amazing happened. Alexander showed up in a helicopter. Laughter rippled around the table, a release of tension. But more importantly, he showed up for me. He saw me when my family couldn't. And somehow his seeing me helped them see me too. I wasn't going to pretend the years of hurt didn't exist. They did. But I'm choosing to focus on the future, on the family we're building together, on the work we're going to do to make the oceans healthier and more resilient. Later, as the party wound down, Bradley pulled me aside. I owe you an apology too. I was dismissive of your work, of Alexander, of everything you'd built. I bought into the narrative that success looked a certain way, and anything different was less than. But you've taught me something important. You've taught me that there are different kinds of wealth, and the kind you have purpose, passion, love, that's the kind that actually matters. Olivia and I have been talking, he continued. We want to do more with our lives than just accumulate money. We're thinking about getting involved in conservation work, maybe funding some projects, using our legal and financial skills to make a difference. Would you and Alexander be willing to talk to us about it? I'd love that. My mother took my hand. I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the mother you deserved all along. Just keep trying, Mom. That's all I ask. She hugged me tight. I love you so much, Victoria. I'm so sorry I didn't show it better. I love you too, Mom. As Alexander and I walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the dark water, he pulled me close. This is what I wanted for you, he said softly. This recognition, this support, this love from your family. You deserve all of it. I have you to thank for it. You would have found another way, he insisted. You're strong, Victoria. Stronger than you give yourself credit for. I just helped speed things along. With a helicopter, I laughed. It was perfect. You were perfect. We stood there a while longer, planning our future. The wedding would be in 6 months on a beach in the Caribbean, intimate and beautiful. My family would be there, rebuilt and better than before. Alexander's conservation team would be there, the family he'd chosen, and we'd start our life together, working side by side to protect the oceans we both loved. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For seeing me, for showing up, for loving me exactly as I am. That's the easy part. You're impossible not to love. The next morning, I woke to my phone ringing. It was barely 7 a.m., and Alexander groaned beside me. This time, it was Olivia. Can I call you back? I answered. I just got some amazing news. And is it about the paper? Because I just saw Dr. Harrison's tweet about it. Victoria, this is incredible, she declared. He's calling you a pioneering voice in marine conservation. You follow Dr. Harrison on social media? I asked, putting her on speaker. I started following a bunch of marine biology accounts after the engagement party. I wanted to understand your work better. And Victoria, what you're doing is incredible. I had no idea the scope of it. There are so many people talking about your research, so many conservation groups citing your findings. How did we not know about this? Because you never asked, I said, but without the bitterness that used to cling to the words. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm asking now. Tell me everything. So I did. I spent 20 minutes explaining the reef project, the methodology, the implications for coral conservation worldwide. Olivia listened, asked questions, and for the first time in our lives, I felt like she was seeing me as a person, not just the disappointing sister. I'm going to send this to everyone I know, she declared when I finished. My partners, my friends, everyone. They need to know what you're doing. After we hung up, Alexander pulled me back into bed. Your sister is becoming your biggest cheerleader. It's weird, but good weird. It's what you deserve. Everyone who knows you should be cheering for you. We spent the rest of the morning in bed making plans. Alexander would start looking for a permanent place in Miami. I would apply for the university position. We'd set a wedding date for next spring somewhere in the Caribbean, intimate and beautiful, maybe on a beach at sunset, the way he'd originally planned his proposal. What about your family? I asked. You've never mentioned them. His expression grew distant. They're not in my life anymore. Long story, painful ending. The people at my conservation fund are my family now. And you? You're my family. I want to know the story. All of it. If we're going to get married, I should know. You will, I promise. Just not today. Today is for celebrating your success. He was right. Today was for celebration. The painful stories could wait. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Saw the news about your paper. So proud of you. Can we take you and Alexander out to dinner to celebrate? I showed Alexander and he smiled. Your family really is changing. They really are. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had everything I'd ever wanted. The publication of my paper and the university offer solidified the foundation of our new life. Alexander threw an impromptu celebration at a waterfront restaurant, inviting my family, colleagues, and several of his conservation partners. My mother's toast acknowledged her failure and my triumph. My father's voice, thick with emotion, declared that I had taught him that success isn't measured in dollars or status, but in the impact we have on the world. Olivia's toast confessed her jealousy of my courage to choose passion over prestige. 3 months ago, I went to my sister's engagement party, expecting to be humiliated. I began when it was my turn to speak, but then something amazing happened. Alexander showed up in a helicopter, but more importantly, he showed up for me. He saw me when my family couldn't, and somehow his seeing me helped them see me too. I looked around the table. I'm not going to pretend the years of hurt don't exist. They do, but I'm choosing to focus on the future, on the family we're building together. Later, Bradley pulled me aside. I owe you an apology too. You've taught me something important. You've taught me that there are different kinds of wealth, and the kind you have purpose, passion, love, that's the kind that actually matters. He and Olivia wanted to get involved in conservation work, offering their legal and financial skills. My mother took my hand. I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the mother you deserved all along. Just keep trying, Mom. That's all I ask. 6 months later, my parents stood on a Caribbean beach and watched me marry the man who'd arrived in a helicopter. Olivia was my maid of honor, tears streaming down her face as she adjusted my veil. My father walked me down the makeshift aisle, whispering, "I'm so proud of you one more time." As Alexander kissed me, I looked out at the small gathering of people we loved, my family, imperfect but trying, our friends and colleagues, united by shared passion for conservation, and Alexander, my partner in every sense of the word, smiling at me like I'd hung the moon. The revenge I'd gotten wasn't the bitter, destructive kind. It was better than that. It was the revenge of living well, of building a life so full of purpose and love that their early dismissal of me became irrelevant. The years following my family's betrayal at Olivia's engagement party were nothing short of transformative. The hurt hadn't vanished overnight, but the foundation of my life had changed, moving from quicksand to solid rock. My professional success was a constant, glorious affirmation of my choices. My parents had established the Victoria Conservation Fund, which quickly grew and now supported 3 different major marine research projects. It was a tangible, perpetual commitment to the work they once mocked. Olivia's law firm provided pro bono legal services to environmental organizations, and she had become an active advocate for ocean protection legislation. Bradley had joined the board of a major conservation nonprofit, using his financial expertise to help them expand their programs. The family that once measured worth by salary was now using its wealth and influence to support my passion. But the most unexpected change had been in my relationship with my family. We had dinner together once a month, and they actually asked about my work, listened to my answers, and celebrated my successes. My mother had framed my published paper and hung it in their living room, showing it to anyone who visited. My father had read every article I'd written, highlighting passages and asking questions. Olivia and I had become real sisters. We texted regularly, supporting each other through challenges and celebrating victories together. That resentment, that agonizing competition, was gone. As for Alexander and me, we'd built a life that was equal parts adventure and stability. We split our time between Miami, where I taught and conducted research, and various project sites around the world, where Alexander's conservation work took us. We bought a small house near the water, where we could watch sunsets and plan our next project. Every day felt like a gift, working side by side to protect the ecosystems we loved, building a future together. Standing on that beach, exchanging vows with the man I loved while my family watched with genuine pride and support, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. My family had ridiculed my fake fiancé, called me a disappointment, tried to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered to them. But that day had become a turning point, not an ending. Because Alexander had shown up, literally descended from the sky, and forced them to see what they'd been missing all along. The revenge I'd gotten wasn't the bitter, destructive kind. It was better than that. It was the revenge of living well, of building a life so full of purpose and love that their early dismissal of me became irrelevant. It was watching them realize what they'd almost lost, and seeing them work to be better. It was standing on this beach about to start a marriage built on mutual respect and shared values, knowing that I'd never again let anyone make me feel less than I was. I looked out at the small gathering of people we loved. My family, imperfect but trying. Our friends and colleagues, united by shared passion for conservation. And Alexander, my partner in every sense of the word, smiling at me like I'd hung the moon. I wished I could tell that girl at Olivia's engagement party that everything was going to be okay. But mostly, I wished I could tell her what I'd finally learned. That her worth wasn't determined by her family's approval or anyone else's validation. She was enough exactly as she was, doing exactly what she loved. The rest would follow. And now, as this brutal, necessary story reaches its end, you must understand the final tally. I lost the illusion of a toxic, conditional family, but I gained the truth. I gained the strength to stand alone. I gained the power to look at my parents and my sister and refuse to be their victim one moment longer. If you are listening to this, and you are being called a disappointment, or told that your passions are worthless by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, hear this. You do not owe them your silence. You do not owe them your loyalty. My revenge wasn't the bitter, destructive kind. It was better than that. It was the revenge of living well, of building a life so full of purpose and love that their early dismissal of me became irrelevant. The revenge was watching them realize what they'd almost lost, and seeing them finally work to be better. The ultimate revenge was the unstoppable construction of my own life. Alexander descending from the sky wasn't the start of my worth. It was the catalyst for my family to see what was already there. He simply used their own language, wealth, and status to force a conversation about purpose and love. Do not let their shame become your guilt. Let their consequences become your freedom. The bravest thing you can do is calculate your emotional losses, declare the debt settled, and walk away. If this story resonated with your own pain and your need for self-worth, please like this video, Subscribe to join a community built on earned respect, and comment below where you are watching from. Let the truth set you free, too. My story doesn't end with the wedding. It begins there. My parents established the Victoria Conservation Fund, which now supports 3 different major marine research projects. It's a tangible, perpetual commitment to the work they once mocked. Olivia and Bradley used their legal and financial skills to support us, providing pro bono legal services and joining the board of a conservation nonprofit. My mother framed my published paper and hung it in their living room. My father read every article I'd written, highlighting passages and asking questions. Olivia and I had become real sisters, texting regularly and celebrating victories together. Alexander and I built a life that was equal parts adventure and stability. We split our time between Miami, where I taught and conducted research, and various project sites around the world. We bought a small house near the water, where we could watch sunsets and plan our next project. I stood on that beach, exchanging vows, and reflected on the journey. My family ridiculed my fake fiancé, called me a disappointment, and tried to humiliate me. But that day became a turning point, not an ending, because Alexander showed up and forced them to see what they'd been missing all along. My ultimate revenge was the self-worth I found. It was watching them realize what they'd almost lost and seeing them work to be better. It was standing on that beach, starting a marriage built on mutual respect and shared values, knowing that I'd never again let anyone make me feel less than I was. I wish I could tell that girl at Olivia's engagement party that her worth wasn't determined by her family's approval or anyone else's validation. She was enough exactly as she was, doing exactly what she loved. The rest followed.